What if a demon wasn't a bringer of plague, but a physician of unparalleled skill? Imagine seeking salvation from the very entity you were taught to fear. What dark secrets of life and death could such a being possess? Today, we delve into the world of BUER, a figure from demonology, astonishingly known for his profound expertise in herbalism, medicine, and the healing arts. Often depicted with the head of a lion and commanding legions within the infernal hierarchy, BUER's association with healing seems paradoxical at first glance. References to him appear in various grimoires, most notably Gosha, but how did a demon become associated with the power to heal? Join us as we uncover the origins of BUER, explore his intriguing connection to the five-pointed star, and examine the specific healing methods attributed to him, from ancient herbal remedies to lost alchemical procedures. We'll also hint at the potential price one might have to pay for seeking assistance from such an entity, the ethical tightrope walk of dealing with a demonic force. By the end, you will gain a completely new perspective on demonology and a glimpse into alternative medical understanding lost in history. The core argument we will explore is how BUER, in his very existence, challenges our conventional understanding of demons, forcing us to confront the uncomfortable duality inherent within knowledge and power. Knowledge, regardless of its source, can be used for both benevolent and malevolent purposes, with power resting in the hands of the wielder. The label of demon may tell us more about the labeler than the labeled. Now, the idea of a good demon might seem inherently contradictory or even unsettling, a challenge to deeply ingrained beliefs, but it is crucial to explore unconventional perspectives. Throughout history, humanity has always been drawn to the occult, the forbidden, and the unknown, as we seek to understand the complex mysteries of the universe and redefine the lines between good and evil. So let's delve into the history and mythology of BUER and uncover the secrets behind this enigmatic demon healer. We will start by exploring the ancient texts and traditions where BUER is mentioned, uncovering the hidden truths behind this extraordinary figure. So, we've asked how a demon could be a healer. Now let's begin by exploring exactly how BUER is described in the ancient texts, texts that whisper of forbidden knowledge and powers beyond human comprehension. Our investigation will primarily focus on the Lesser Key of Solomon, specifically the Ars Gotia and the Pseudomonarchia Daemonum, the infamous grimoires that have captivated and terrified readers for centuries. We'll uncover the common threads and subtle variations that paint a more complete picture of BUER's nature and abilities, a picture that challenges our preconceived notions of demons as purely malevolent entities. To truly grasp BUER's place in demonology, we must first understand the historical context that birthed the grimoires in which he appears. The medieval and Renaissance periods witnessed a surge in demonological texts, fueled by a pervasive fear of the devil and his legions. These weren't merely theological treatises. They were often presented as practical guides for summoning spirits, both benevolent and malevolent, and bending them to the will of the magician. The very act of writing, possessing, or reading these texts was seen by some as heresy, flirtations with dark forces that could corrupt the soul, a testament to their perceived power and danger. This environment of religious fervor, superstition, and the desire to control the unseen world created the fertile ground for the creation and dissemination of grimoires, making them key to understanding the origins and evolution of demonology and the figures within them. BUER's appearance, as meticulously documented in the Gotia and other grimoires, is far from the grotesque imagery often associated with demons. He is most frequently described as having the head of a lion, a symbol of strength, courage, and nobility, perched atop 5 legs that radiate outwards, allowing him to move swiftly in any direction. Unlike many demons depicted in inverted or contorted postures, BUER stands upright, a stance that some interpret as a sign of his elevated status and command. But what of his abilities? The grimoires state that BUER possesses profound knowledge of herbs and their medicinal properties, granting him the power to heal all manner of diseases. He is also said to be a skilled teacher of philosophy, logic, and ethics, intellectual pursuits seemingly at odds with the demonic realm. Moreover, the Gosha designates him as a great president in hell, ruling over 50 legions of demons. How can a being with such benevolent traits also command the infernal hosts? This paradox lies at the heart of BUER's enigmatic nature. Is this a glimpse into a more nuanced understanding of demons, or is there a more sinister explanation lurking beneath the surface? How can a demon have the knowledge to heal illnesses? The Gosha itself offers the most direct evidence of BUER's nature. Specific passages detail his appearance and powers. For example, it states, "The 10th spirit is BUER, a great president. He appeareth in Sagittarius, and that is his shape when the sun is there. He teaches philosophy, both moral and natural, and the logic art, and also the virtues of all herbs and plants. He heals all distempers in man, and hath 50 legions of spirits under his command." This succinct description encapsulates the core attributes of BUER: his association with Sagittarius, his role as a teacher, his healing abilities, and his command over legions of spirits. But what specific remedies did BUER prescribe? While the grimoires don't provide explicit recipes, they hint at a deep understanding of herbalism and alchemical procedures. Imagine a physician in the Dark Ages invoking this spirit to reveal the hidden properties of plants to save his patients. References to historical accounts of people who claim to have invoked BUER for healing purposes are scarce, shrouded in secrecy due to the dangerous nature of the rituals. The symbols associated with BUER are of high importance when evoking him. His sigil, a unique design intended to act as a point of contact, is crucial for summoning rituals. This sigil, carefully drawn and charged with intent, is believed to act as a beacon, drawing BUER's attention to the summoner. But what is the significance of BUER's unique combination of demonic and healing attributes? Does this suggest a more complex view of demons than simply evil entities? Some scholars suggest that BUER's healing abilities represent a form of spiritual alchemy, where he transforms negative energies into positive ones. Others propose that he embodies the duality of nature, the inherent balance between destruction and creation, sickness and health. The lion's head may symbolize courage and strength in the face of illness, while the 5 legs could represent the 5 elements or the 5 senses, all essential for understanding the human body. But what are the potential motivations behind BUER's healing abilities? Is he genuinely benevolent, offering aid to those in need, or does he have ulterior motives, perhaps seeking to bind individuals to him through a debt of gratitude? Can faith in a demon offer genuine relief from suffering, even if there is no objective evidence of efficacy? The psychological impact of seeking help from such an entity is another facet to consider. In essence, BUER presents a unique conundrum, far more than just a destroyer. What are we to make of this demon of healing and knowledge? But what about the 5-pointed star? How does this symbol relate to BUER's healing abilities, and what does it signify in the broader context of demonology? We'll uncover the various meanings and uses of this potent symbol across different cultures and traditions. Some say it is merely for protection, while others say it is the gate for summoning entities. It is important to acknowledge that the healing powers attributed to BUER could be interpreted as symbolic rather than literal. Some scholars may argue that the healing refers to spiritual or psychological well-being, not physical cures. Perhaps BUER's knowledge of philosophy and logic was intended to heal the mind, not the body. It is also crucial to address the potential dangers and ethical considerations of invoking demons for any purpose, including healing. The risks of making pacts with demonic entities are significant, with the potential for manipulation, harm, or even the loss of one's soul. The grimoires themselves often warn of the consequences of disrespecting or disobeying the spirits. And of course, we must always remember that some grimoires may contain exaggerated or unreliable information, products of scribal errors, intentional embellishments, or purely fictional accounts. Ultimately, despite potential counterarguments, BUER remains a unique figure in demonology due to his association with healing. His attributes challenge conventional views of demons as purely malevolent forces, driven only by destruction and chaos. BUER exemplifies how these elements can coexist in unexpected ways, blurring the lines between good and evil, knowledge and power, healing and corruption. But perhaps BUER challenges us to rethink our assumptions about the nature of good and evil and the sources from which we seek healing and knowledge. Now that we understand BUER's role as a demon healer, a question arises. What is the meaning behind the five-pointed star, a symbol often associated with him? In this section, we'll explore the history and varied interpretations of this potent symbol, uncovering its connection to healing, protection, and the darker aspects of occult practices. Is it simply a symbol of benevolent power, or does it represent a more complex and potentially dangerous relationship with the demonic realm? To understand the five-pointed star, also known as a pentagram or pentalpha, we must journey back through the annals of history, tracing its presence across diverse cultures and eras. Its origins can be found in ancient Mesopotamia, around 3000 BC, where it was used in royal inscriptions and symbolized imperial power, extending to the four corners of the world. The ancient Greeks, particularly the Pythagoreans, revered the pentagram as a symbol of mathematical perfection and cosmic harmony, associating it with the five classical elements and the human form. The 5 points represented the four elements, with the fifth element, spirit, at the top connecting all of them. Celtic traditions also embraced the pentagram, linking it to the goddess Morgan and representing the mysteries of the earth and the cycles of nature. Over time, this symbol became intertwined with various spiritual and magical practices, its meaning evolving and adapting to different belief systems. But how did this ancient symbol, representing balance and harmony, come to be associated with both light and darkness? The five-pointed star's symbolism is multifaceted, capable of representing both good and bad, depending on its orientation and the context in which it is used. In Christianity, the upright pentagram, with a single point facing upwards, symbolizes the 5 wounds of Christ, representing sacrifice, redemption, and divine grace. It has even been used to represent the Star of Bethlehem. However, when inverted, with 2 points facing upwards, the pentagram takes on a different connotation, often associated with witchcraft, Satanism, and the forces of darkness. This inversion represents the triumph of matter over spirit, the descent into the material world, and the embrace of primal instincts. Prominent figures like Pythagoras and Agrippa contributed to the symbol's mystique, associating it with mathematical harmony, human perfection, and the interconnectedness of all things. Agrippa saw the pentagram as a symbol of the microcosm, representing the human body with its 5 senses and its connection to the macrocosm, the universe. But what makes this seemingly simple geometric shape such a powerful and versatile symbol, capable of evoking such contrasting interpretations? In occult traditions, the orientation of the 5-pointed star holds significant meaning in relation to demons and spirits. The upright pentagram is often used in rituals of protection and banishment, invoking divine forces to ward off negative entities and create a sacred space. Each point of the star corresponds to one of the 5 classical elements: earth, air, fire, water, and spirit. The placement of these elements within the star influences the nature of the magic being performed. When used in summoning rituals, the pentagram can be drawn in the air or inscribed on the ground, acting as a gateway or a container for the spirit being invoked. The inverted pentagram, on the other hand, is often associated with the invocation of darker forces, representing a descent into the material realm and a connection to primal energies. This symbol is often used in rituals associated with the left-hand path, which focuses on self-deification and the pursuit of personal power, rather than adherence to conventional morality. How can the same symbol be used for such opposing purposes? For example, historical grimoires like the Lemegeton also known as the Lesser Key of Solomon, contain detailed instructions for using the five-pointed star in summoning and banishing rituals. Specific incantations and gestures are prescribed to activate the power of the star and control the spirits being invoked. Visual examples of the pentagram can be found in numerous grimoires, each variation representing a different purpose or a specific type of spirit. In some depictions, the names of God or other divine beings are inscribed within the star, while in others, the names of demons or infernal entities are used. While BUER's sigil contains symbols of a star, it is not depicted as the typical five-pointed one. One can find in certain interpretations that BUER's sigil is placed inside of an upright five-pointed star, and in others, an inverted one. This subtle difference drastically changes the purpose of the symbol to either protect or invoke. The idea of the healing hand or hand of the goddess, often associated with the five-pointed star in some pagan traditions, connects to BUER's healing abilities, suggesting a link between the symbol and the power to heal and nurture. But what is the significance of the 5 points themselves? The significance of the five-pointed star in relation to BUER's healing abilities can be interpreted in several ways. Some suggest that it represents the balance between opposing forces necessary for healing, with each point representing a different aspect of health: physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, and energetic. The star's symbolism can also be seen as a representation of the connection between the physical and spiritual realms, with BUER acting as a conduit between these two worlds. The elements represented by each point of the star relate to the different aspects of human health. Earth, for example, can represent the physical body and its grounding in the material world, while air can symbolize the breath, the mind, and communication. Fire can represent energy, passion, and transformation, while water can symbolize emotions, intuition, and the flow of life. Spirit can represent the connection to the divine, the higher self, and the ultimate source of healing. The star might serve as a conduit for drawing in beneficial energies or dispelling negative ones, channeling them through BUER to facilitate the healing process. But is this connection between BUER and the five-pointed star a universally accepted interpretation? It's important to acknowledge that the association between the five-pointed star and BUER may be a relatively modern interpretation, influenced by contemporary occult practices and artistic representations. Historians and scholars of demonology may not fully agree about the direct and historical relationship between the two. Furthermore, the use of the five-pointed star in occult practices can be easily misinterpreted, as its meaning and purpose vary greatly depending on the tradition, the practitioner, and the specific ritual being performed. The symbol may represent something entirely different than healing, such as protection, power, or even a connection to specific deities or spirits. The symbol of the star has also been used throughout different cultures for different meanings, and we must be respectful of its use and not appropriate it. Despite these counterarguments, the five-pointed star remains a potent symbol with complex associations, and that is difficult to ignore. The symbol's throughline of power, health, protection, and spirituality remains consistent across cultures. Its symbolism, occult significance, and potential role in healing practices makes it important to demonology. The study of it helps us to encapsulate the duality of power, knowledge, and healing. Is it right to dabble in dangerous symbols if it yields good? This question encapsulates a lot of what we have been talking about. What happens when we dabble in the medical dark arts? But are BUER's methods truly benevolent, or do they involve a darker side that we have yet to explore? Next, we'll delve into the potential risks and moral dilemmas associated with seeking healing from a demonic entity and the blurring lines between medicine and magic. Having explored the symbolism of the five-pointed star and BUER's healing abilities, we must now confront a more unsettling question. What are the ethical implications of seeking help from a demonic entity? In this section, we'll examine the blurred lines between medicine, magic, and manipulation. exploring the potential for both benefit and harm when dealing with forces beyond our understanding. Is it possible to accept help from a demon without paying a terrible price, and does the end ever justify the means when dealing with such dangerous powers? To understand the ethical dimensions of medical dark arts, we must first acknowledge that unorthodox medical practices have existed throughout history. Bloodletting, for instance, was a common practice for centuries, despite its limited effectiveness and potential dangers. Trepanation, the act of drilling holes in the skull, was performed for a variety of reasons, from treating head injuries to purportedly releasing evil spirits. While some of these practices may have been rooted in genuine attempts to heal, they often blurred the lines between medicine and superstition, raising serious ethical questions about patient safety and informed consent. These methods underscore a willingness to push boundaries in the name of healing, even when the risks were substantial and the potential benefits uncertain. So how do we differentiate these practices from medical dark arts? Medical dark arts can be defined as practices that pursue healing through ethically questionable or dangerous means, often involving harm to others, violation of consent, or the use of deceptive techniques. Unlike conventional medicine, which prioritizes patient safety and evidence-based treatments, medical dark arts may prioritize results above all else, even if it means causing harm in the short term. The concept of the end justifies the means becomes particularly relevant in this context, as practitioners may argue that causing temporary pain or suffering is acceptable if it leads to a long-term cure. This raises the question of whether it is ever ethically justifiable to intentionally cause harm in the name of healing. Where does the power of belief in healing come into play? Rituals associated with BUER can raise several ethical concerns, depending on their specific nature and interpretation. Some incantations, for instance, may require the sacrifice of animals or the offering of something valuable, raising questions about the moral implications of such acts. While some practitioners may view these sacrifices as symbolic gestures, others may interpret them as literal offerings, potentially leading to animal cruelty or the misappropriation of resources. Some herbal remedies attributed to BUER might have dangerous side effects. One must be wary of poisonous herbs used in small doses for their healing properties, as their effects could be devastating if improperly administered. Consider the potential for manipulation or coercion when seeking help from a demonic entity. What begins as a desperate plea for healing could easily devolve into a dangerous pact with unforeseen consequences, a deal with the devil, so to speak. Analyzing the potential motivations behind BUER's healing methods is crucial to understanding the ethical dimensions of working with him. Is he genuinely benevolent, offering a service without any intention of harm or manipulation? Or is he simply using healing as a means to gain influence or power, exploiting people's desperation for his own ends? The symbolism of sacrifice or offering in BUER's rituals can also be interpreted in multiple ways. Does it represent a necessary exchange of energy, a form of reciprocity between the human and demonic realms? Or is it a form of manipulation, designed to create a sense of obligation or dependence on BUER? The psychological impact of believing in demonic healing must also be considered. Can faith in a demon offer genuine relief from suffering, or does it ultimately lead to delusion and dependence, blurring the lines between reality and fantasy? The potential for abuse of power when dealing with demonic entities is a significant concern. Could BUER exploit someone's vulnerability and desperation for healing to gain control over their life, turning them into a pawn in his own infernal schemes? The healing arts are a noble pursuit, but not every path is righteous. However, some may see the risk as an important step to cure disease. BUER exemplifies the power of healing, but his methods are not without controversy. Invoking BUER for health is a choice, but be wary of the risks that come with the territory. His abilities encapsulate the duality of power, knowledge, and healing, a dance of light and darkness that challenges our understanding of right and wrong, but where do you draw the line? However, it is essential to acknowledge that some people view BUER's healing methods as purely benevolent, genuinely offering a service without any intention of harm or manipulation. In cases of extreme suffering or life-threatening illness, the argument that the ends justify the means may hold considerable weight, as individuals may be willing to take risks or make ethical compromises if it offers a chance of survival. For some, there may be no ethical issues with seeking help from a demonic entity, simply viewing demons as another source of power or knowledge without any moral baggage. The placebo effect and the power of belief are undeniable factors in healing, suggesting that faith, regardless of its source, can have a tangible impact on health outcomes. In the end, seeking help from medical dark arts is a choice, but one that should not be taken lightly. BUER exemplifies both the power of healing and the potential dangers of the unknown, embodying the duality of power, knowledge, and healing that lies at the heart of many occult traditions. In an era of modern medicine, where does the need for such practices come from? Where do you draw the line? This is a question that continues to fuel ethical debates and personal dilemmas. But what about today? Are people still attempting to invoke BUER for healing purposes? And if so, what are their experiences? Next, we'll delve into the world of modern demonolatry and examine how BUER is viewed and worked with in contemporary occult circles. Having grappled with the ethical considerations of seeking healing from BUER, we now turn our attention to a different realm. How is BUER viewed and worked with in modern occultism? In this section, we'll explore the varied interpretations of BUER in modern occult circles, from demonolatry to witchcraft, examining how practitioners attempt to connect with him for healing, knowledge, and personal empowerment. Is BUER seen as a benevolent healer, a powerful ally, or a dangerous force to be carefully controlled? And what are the rituals and practices used to invoke his presence? To understand the modern interpretations of BUER, we must briefly describe the rise of modern demonolatry and occultism in the 20th and 21st centuries. Figures like Aleister Crowley, with his emphasis on personal will and the exploration of forbidden knowledge, significantly influenced the revival of interest in demonology, albeit in a new, more individualized context. Movements like Wicca, with its focus on nature worship and witchcraft, also contributed to a broader acceptance of esoteric practices. The rise of the internet and social media have further facilitated the spread of occult knowledge, creating online forums, social media groups, and websites dedicated to demonolatry and occultism, acting as platforms for sharing information, experiences, and rituals. It's important to note that modern demonolatry encompasses different philosophical and spiritual perspectives, ranging from theistic demonolatry, which views demons as independent entities with their own consciousness and will, to atheistic demonolatry, which sees them as symbols of personal power and psychological archetypes. All these factors distinguish it significantly from old demonology, which was primarily concerned with the condemnation and eradication of demonic influence. In modern demonolatry, BUER is often perceived as a powerful spirit who can offer healing, knowledge, and guidance, a far cry from the purely malevolent portrayal found in some older grimoires. The roles BUER might play in modern occult practices are diverse: healer, teacher, counselor, and protector. As a healer, he is invoked for physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being. As a teacher, he offers knowledge of herbs, medicine, and the natural world. As a counselor, he provides guidance and support in navigating life's challenges. And as a protector, he shields practitioners from negative energies and harm. Practitioners attempt to connect with BUER through various means, including meditation, invocation, evocation, and ritual offerings. Meditation involves focusing on BUER's sigil or attributes to establish a mental connection. Invocation is a call for BUER to enter the practitioner's body or presence. Evocation is a summoning of BUER to appear in a visible form. Ritual offerings typically involve gifts of herbs, incense, or candles. Different methods of invocation exist, ranging from simple prayers to elaborate ceremonies involving specific incantations, symbols, and ritual tools. Some practitioners use guided meditations to visualize BUER's presence, while others perform elaborate rituals that draw on ancient grimoires and occult traditions. This is where modern and historical sources combine and are reinterpreted. For example, a modern ritual to invoke BUER might involve creating a sacred space, lighting candles, and chanting an incantation based on descriptions from the Gosha or other grimoires. The practitioner might offer incense, herbs, or a symbolic representation of healing, such as a caduceus or a five-pointed star. Some practitioners share experiences of profound healing, gaining insights into their health, or experiencing a sense of personal transformation after working with BUER. Online forums, websites, and social media groups dedicated to demonolatry are filled with accounts of people discussing their experiences with BUER, offering insights into modern BUER practices. One user on a demonolatry forum described how invoking BUER helped them overcome a chronic illness, while another shared how BUER guided them in their studies of herbal medicine. BUER has even appeared in pop culture, albeit often in a distorted or fictionalized form. For example, in some video games or fantasy novels, BUER is depicted as a powerful healing demon who can be summoned to aid the protagonist. However, these portrayals often lack the nuance and complexity found in occult traditions. The motivations behind seeking help or guidance from BUER in modern times are varied. Some seek healing from chronic illnesses or emotional wounds that conventional medicine has failed to address. Others seek knowledge of the natural world, herbal medicine, or esoteric practices. Still others seek personal empowerment, spiritual growth, or a deeper understanding of the self. The symbolism of modern BUER rituals and practices can be interpreted in multiple ways. Some see them as a genuine connection to a powerful spirit, while others view them as a form of self-help or psychological projection. The potential benefits of working with BUER in a modern context include genuine healing, empowerment, and increased knowledge. However, there are also potential risks, including delusion, dependence, and psychological instability. Ultimately, the intentions behind the invocations play a crucial role in determining the outcome. A sincere desire for healing and growth may lead to positive results, while a selfish or manipulative intent may backfire. But what about the mind? What is the psychological impact of believing in demonic healing, and can faith in a demonic entity offer genuine relief from suffering, even if there is no objective evidence of efficacy? Next, we'll delve into the psychological effects of believing in demonic healing, potentially involving discussions with psychologists or therapists, as well as diving into examples of modern occult groups and their leaders. However, it's essential to acknowledge that the claims of modern BUER practitioners may be viewed with skepticism, dismissed as delusion, fantasy, or psychological projection. The potential for confirmation bias and placebo effects in these experiences cannot be ignored. People may selectively interpret events to support their beliefs or experience benefits simply because they expect to. It is also worth noting that some occult practices may be harmful or dangerous, potentially leading to mental instability, social isolation, or exploitation by unscrupulous individuals. It is equally important to acknowledge the potential lack of evidence from the scientific or medical community. Many claims of demonic healing are not supported by scientific studies or medical research, and should not be considered a substitute for conventional medical treatment. Some individuals might view demons as dangerous entities that should be avoided. Despite these counterarguments, BUER remains a figure of interest and controversy in modern occultism. His ambiguous nature and association with healing continue to fascinate and intrigue those who seek knowledge and power beyond the confines of conventional understanding. From healing to power, people's desires are varied, and BUER is still seen as a figure with great power. Ultimately, the exploration of BUER in modern occultism demonstrates the enduring human quest for healing, knowledge, and personal empowerment, even if it means venturing into ethically ambiguous and potentially dangerous territory. Should people believe in these things? Should people be skeptical? The role of belief and the potential for both benefit and harm in seeking help from unconventional sources remains a topic of ongoing debate. We've explored modern practices, but that begs the question, what is the psychological impact of believing in demonic healing? Can faith in a demonic entity actually bring relief from suffering? In this section, we'll analyze how the human mind can influence health outcomes, exploring the fine line between genuine healing and psychological manipulation. Is it possible to harness the power of belief for good, or does it inevitably open the door to manipulation and psychological harm when dealing with demonic entities? To understand the psychological factors at play, we must first consider the history of the placebo effect and its gradual recognition in medicine. While the term placebo wasn't widely used until the 19th century, the phenomenon itself has been observed for centuries. Early examples of placebo use can be found in ancient healing practices, where rituals, amulets, and herbal remedies with little or no inherent medicinal value were often employed. These practices, while seemingly ineffective from a purely scientific perspective, often resulted in genuine improvements in the patient's condition. Over time, medical practitioners began to recognize the power of belief and expectation in healing, even if they didn't fully understand the underlying mechanisms. This recognition led to the gradual understanding of the placebo effect as a distinct and measurable phenomenon, influencing both physical and mental health. Furthermore, belief and expectation have played a crucial role in healing across various cultures and traditions throughout history. From faith healing and shamanic practices to culturally specific healing rituals, the power of belief has consistently demonstrated its ability to influence health outcomes. The placebo effect is a phenomenon where a person experiences a real benefit from a treatment that has no inherent therapeutic value, simply because they believe it will work. It's not just about thinking positive. It involves complex neurobiological processes that can affect everything from pain perception to immune function. The placebo effect demonstrates the profound connection between mind and body, and how our beliefs, expectations, and emotions can influence our physiology. Suggestion can influence our perception of pain, our immune system, and even our cognitive abilities. For instance, studies have shown that people who receive a placebo painkiller often experience a reduction in pain, even though the pill contains no active ingredients. Similarly, studies have demonstrated that the placebo effect can improve mood, reduce anxiety, and even alleviate symptoms of depression. This power is also utilized, for ill intent, in psychological vulnerabilities. People who are highly suggestible may be more susceptible to believing in the power of demonic healing, while cognitive dissonance can lead them to rationalize inconsistencies or negative experiences. This is further exacerbated by cults, which exploit these vulnerabilities through psychological manipulation, isolating individuals, reinforcing beliefs, and suppressing doubt, further enhancing the perceived power of the cult leader or the invoked entities. For example, studies have demonstrated that the placebo effect can be particularly strong in conditions like pain, depression, and anxiety. One study published in Pain found that placebo painkillers could reduce pain intensity by as much as 30% in some individuals. Another study in the Archives of General Psychiatry found that placebo antidepressants were nearly as effective as active antidepressants in treating mild to moderate depression. These studies highlight the significant role that belief and expectation can play in shaping our subjective experience of illness and recovery. Similarly, there are many anecdotes and case studies of people who have experienced genuine relief from suffering through faith, or belief. Accounts of people who have recovered from illness through prayer, positive thinking, or alternative medicine abound, although it's important to note that these accounts are often anecdotal and lack rigorous scientific evidence. However, they nonetheless underscore the power of belief to influence health outcomes. Psychological research on the effects of suggestion and hypnosis further supports the idea that our beliefs and expectations can shape our perception and behavior. Studies have shown that suggestion can influence memory, perception, and behavior, as well as psychological manipulation tactics such as gaslighting and projection. So how might the power of belief and the placebo effect contribute to the perceived effectiveness of demonic healing? If a person genuinely believes that BUER can heal them, their belief may trigger physiological changes that promote healing, regardless of whether BUER actually exists or intervenes. The rituals, incantations, and symbols associated with BUER may serve as a form of psychological conditioning, reinforcing the person's belief and expectation, thereby amplifying the placebo effect. A cunning practitioner might exploit a person's vulnerabilities by using suggestion, guilt, or fear to control their beliefs and behaviors. The power dynamic between a practitioner and client can be particularly dangerous, as the practitioner may be able to exert undue influence over the client's beliefs and actions. In this sense, rituals and incantations are not just empty words or symbolic gestures, but rather powerful tools that can shape our perceptions, influence our emotions, and even alter our physiology. The power dynamic between a practitioner and a client can be particularly complex, as the practitioner may be seen as an authority figure who possesses special knowledge or abilities. We've seen the risks, but is there any way that demonic healing can work without these risks? Can people actually benefit from this, or is it all a trick of the mind? Next, we'll dive into how belief can actually play a strong part in traditional and accepted healing methods, and what BUER's role is in this power. However, it is important to acknowledge that belief in BUER can be a helpful method for some people. It is possible for people to earnestly believe in BUER and for it to never become a problem. Additionally, there may be cultures where demonic healing is more commonplace. In these cultures, where demonic entities are integrated into the belief system, seeking healing from BUER may be seen as a legitimate and culturally accepted practice. It's hard to know what goes on inside someone else's head. Every person has different things that guide them through life, and who are we to judge those things? This can make it difficult to assess the true impact of demonic healing, as we can only rely on subjective experiences and anecdotal evidence. No matter if BUER is real, belief can influence people. There are dangers, but that doesn't discount potential benefits. Ultimately, power and knowledge are neither good nor bad, just tools. The true danger lies in the hands wielding that power. So, what do you believe? We've seen how belief can significantly influence perceived healing, even when that belief is directed towards a demonic entity. Now, let's explore how this seemingly unorthodox approach interfaces with more accepted healing practices. Is it possible that the power of belief, regardless of its source, can augment the healing process itself, unlocking pathways to wellness that might otherwise remain closed? In this section, we'll explore how belief acts as a crucial bridge between the healer, the patient, and the healing modality, potentially unlocking a greater potential for recovery. We'll uncover how faith and expectation can shape our physical and mental well-being, blurring the lines between science and spirituality, and perhaps even shining a new light on the potential role of BUER or any figure like him. Could it be that the very act of believing, regardless of the object of that belief, holds a key to unlocking our innate healing capabilities? Historically, faith and spirituality have been inextricably linked to medicine across countless cultures. From ancient Egypt, where priests invoked the gods for healing and prescribed remedies based on divine guidance, to the shamanic traditions of indigenous cultures, where rituals and spirit journeys were used to restore balance and harmony, the role of belief has been paramount. Prayers, rituals, and amulets were not merely superstitious practices, but integral components of the healing process, designed to harness the power of the mind and spirit. In ancient Greece, the Asclepiae, temples dedicated to the god of healing Asclepius, were centers of both medical treatment and spiritual devotion. Patients would undergo purification rituals, offer sacrifices, and sleep in the temple, hoping for a divine visitation that would bring about a cure. Furthermore, many traditional healing systems emphasize the concept of a vital force or life energy that animates the body and sustains health. Traditional Chinese medicine, for instance, speaks of qi, a vital energy that flows through specific pathways in the body, while Ayurveda, the ancient Indian system of medicine, describes prana, a similar life force that governs physical and mental well-being. These systems emphasize the importance of restoring balance and harmony to this vital energy through practices like acupuncture, herbal medicine, and yoga. Even in modern medicine, the mind-body connection is increasingly recognized as a significant factor in health outcomes. The impact of stress, emotions, and social support on the immune system, hormonal balance, and overall well-being is now well documented, highlighting the intricate interplay between our mental and physical states. Ultimately, belief in a process and its ability is a component of every healing practice. We can define the healing triad as the synergistic interplay between belief, healing practice, and intent, each element reinforcing the others to create a powerful effect. Belief provides the foundation, the expectation that healing is possible. The healing practice, whether it be conventional medicine, alternative therapy, or even a ritualistic invocation, provides the vehicle for that belief to manifest. Intent acts as the guiding force, directing the energy and focus of both the healer and the patient towards the desired outcome. Each element reinforces the others, creating a synergistic effect that amplifies the healing process. Belief can significantly enhance the effectiveness of medical treatments by reducing anxiety, boosting the immune system, and improving adherence to treatment plans. Positive expectations can trigger the release of endorphins, the body's natural painkillers, and activate the parasympathetic nervous system, promoting relaxation and reducing stress. This, in turn, can create a more favorable environment for healing to occur. Furthermore, belief can empower patients to take an active role in their own recovery, fostering a sense of control and self-efficacy that can significantly impact their overall well-being. This empowerment is key in modern medicine. The meaning response goes beyond the placebo effect, suggesting that our brains actively seek meaning and coherence in our experiences. When we find meaning in a healing practice, regardless of its objective efficacy, it can trigger powerful healing mechanisms. This meaning can be derived from various sources, such as the perceived authority of the healer, the cultural significance of the ritual, or the personal resonance of the belief system. It's the why behind the healing modality. Finally, intent is the direction that a healer is attempting to steer the healing. Medical studies have demonstrated the benefits of incorporating belief and spirituality into healthcare. Studies have shown that prayer, meditation, and mindfulness can improve outcomes in patients with chronic pain, heart disease, and cancer. For instance, a study published in the Journal of Behavioral Medicine found that mindfulness-based stress reduction, MBSR, significantly reduced pain intensity and improved quality of life in patients with chronic low back pain. Another study in the American Heart Journal found that prayer and meditation were associated with improved cardiovascular health and reduced risk of death in patients with heart disease. These studies provide empirical evidence for the powerful influence of belief and spirituality on health outcomes. There are countless anecdotes of people who have experienced remarkable recoveries through a combination of medical treatment and strong personal belief. Accounts of people who have overcome seemingly insurmountable odds by maintaining a positive attitude, visualizing their recovery, and drawing strength from their faith abound. While these accounts may not always be scientifically verifiable, they nonetheless highlight the potential for belief to act as a catalyst for healing. Intent matters in healing practice. For example, in Reiki, a healing practice that involves channeling life force energy, the healer focuses their intent on directing the energy towards specific areas of the body, with the goal of restoring balance and promoting healing. Intent can shape the outcome, as with focused meditation. Analyzing how belief in BUER or any other spiritual entity might interact with traditional medical treatments reveals a potentially complex interplay. It could act as a catalyst, amplifying the healing power of both approaches, creating a synergistic effect that surpasses the limitations of either method alone. The symbolic role of BUER can also be interpreted as a representation of the patient's own inner healing potential, a figure that embodies their capacity for resilience and recovery. By believing in BUER's power, the patient may be tapping into their own innate ability to heal, unlocking dormant resources and activating powerful self-healing mechanisms. Furthermore, BUER may provide comfort, hope, and meaning during times of illness, offering a sense of purpose and resilience that can be invaluable in coping with the challenges of disease. The connection to a higher power, even a demonic one, might offer a sense of purpose and resilience. The healing components in BUER rituals involve elements such as community, self-reflection, and physical change. In other words, the healing isn't always paranormal and can be psychological and emotional. Thus far, we've seen the potential for a potent combination of belief, healing, and intent. Now we can appreciate that this is a powerful combination that modern medicine should also consider. We've discussed the psychological and spiritual components, but what about objective reality? Is there any real-world evidence to support the claims of demonic healing, or is it all just wishful thinking? We are just beginning to scratch the surface of belief systems, and as we move forward, we will continue to see them crop up. It's important to acknowledge that some medical professionals may dismiss the role of belief and spirituality in healing, exhibiting a potential bias toward purely scientific explanations. The limitations of current scientific methods for studying subjective experiences like belief and faith pose a challenge, making it difficult to objectively measure the impact of prayer or ritual. Also, the over-reliance on belief can sometimes hinder people from seeking evidence-based medical care, as individuals may refuse conventional treatment because of their faith in a certain demon or ritual. Modern medicine has much to offer. By faith, the healing triad becomes more effective, and as we examine the role of belief, we must also be willing to examine current modern practices. The combination of faith, medicine, and intent becomes a force to be reckoned with, and we have to be willing to admit the power it brings. Even modern medicine has a component of belief that is worth considering, so we must continue to consider the effect of belief. Ultimately, BUER's power may lie in his ability to connect individuals to the idea of power itself, enhancing their intent and unlocking their inner healing potential. But what happens when the objective reality doesn't align with our beliefs? What happens when science can't explain the phenomena we experience? Next, we'll delve into the realm of the unexplained, exploring the potential for phenomena that lie beyond the scope of conventional science, and if there are any links between demons and the real world. We've explored the potential for a potent combination of belief, healing, and intent, but what about something real, something tangible? Is there a way to objectively measure the influence of demonic entities like BUER, or are we solely in the realm of subjective experience? In this section, we will grapple with the difficulties of applying scientific methods to paranormal phenomena, examining potential approaches that could shed light on the objective reality, or lack thereof, of demonic healing. But can we bridge the gap between the seen and unseen, and what would constitute proof in a domain that defies conventional understanding? Historically, attempts to scientifically measure paranormal phenomena have faced significant challenges. early experiments in parapsychology, such as those conducted by J.B. Rhine at Duke University in the 1930s, aimed to demonstrate the existence of extrasensory perception, ESP, through statistical analysis of card-guessing experiments. While Rhine's initial results appeared promising, his methods were later criticized for lacking proper controls and being susceptible to statistical anomalies. As skepticism grew, organizations like the Committee for Skeptical Inquiry, CSI, emerged, dedicated to debunking paranormal claims through rigorous scientific investigation. These groups have played a significant role in scrutinizing and discrediting many purported instances of paranormal activity. This evolution of scientific skepticism has profoundly impacted how anomalous events are studied and perceived. Even the measurement of healing has evolved through time. The ancient Egyptians used the draining of blood with leeches as a measure of disease and the effectiveness of treatment, a practice that seems crude by today's standards, but was considered advanced for its time. Objective measurement, in the context of paranormal phenomena, necessitates verifiable, repeatable evidence that is independent of personal belief or subjective experience. In other words, it requires data that can be consistently observed and measured by different researchers using standardized protocols. Applying this definition to demonic influence presents a formidable challenge. Demonic influence is often described as subtle, indirect, and difficult to detect, making it hard to isolate and quantify. However, several potential avenues for investigation could be explored. One approach involves measuring physiological changes in patients undergoing demonic healing rituals. This could include monitoring brainwave activity using electroencephalography, EEG, tracking heart rate variability, HRV, to assess stress levels, and analyzing immune function through blood tests. Another avenue involves analyzing the content of demonic incantations and their potential effects on the mind. Linguistic analysis could reveal patterns in the language used, while psychological studies could assess the impact of these incantations on cognitive and emotional states. Yet another involves studying the environmental factors associated with demonic manifestations. This could include measuring electromagnetic fields, EMF, using EMF meters, tracking temperature fluctuations with thermal cameras, and monitoring atmospheric pressure with barometers. Finally, the question of a unit of measure for demonic impact is an open one. How could one define a demon? Several studies have attempted to measure the physiological effects of spiritual or energy healing. For instance, studies on Reiki, a Japanese healing technique involving the channeling of life force energy, have shown that it can reduce stress, lower blood pressure, and improve immune function in some individuals. While these studies do not specifically address demonic healing, they offer a glimpse into the potential for measuring the physiological impact of belief-based practices. Technologies such as EMF meters, thermal cameras, and voice recorders have also been used to detect or measure paranormal phenomena. EMF meters are designed to detect fluctuations in electromagnetic fields, which some believe are associated with paranormal activity. Thermal cameras can detect variations in temperature, which some claim can indicate the presence of spirits. Voice recorders are used to capture electronic voice phenomena, EVP, which are unexplained sounds or voices that appear on recordings. While many of these technologies are easily explained, that doesn't mean that more cannot be discovered. Anecdotal accounts of seemingly inexplicable events associated with demonic encounters also exist. These accounts often describe objects moving on their own, unexplained noises, sudden changes in temperature, and other unusual phenomena. While such accounts are difficult to verify objectively, they contribute to the overall perception of demonic influence. However, there is one notable account of a tumor shrinking during a BUER ritual, which the patient tracked and measured. This at least suggests some change occurred, but as for influence, despite these efforts, current scientific methods face significant limitations in studying demonic influence. The difficulty of controlling for confounding variables, such as the power of suggestion, the placebo effect, and pre-existing medical conditions, poses a major challenge. The lack of standardized protocols for conducting paranormal research also makes it difficult to compare results across different studies. Furthermore, the potential for bias on the part of both researchers and participants can significantly impact the findings. Interpreting anecdotal evidence in light of psychological and environmental factors also requires careful consideration. Seemingly paranormal events could potentially be explained by suggestion, imagination, or natural phenomena. For instance, unexplained noises could be attributed to structural settling, temperature fluctuations to drafts, and moving objects to subtle vibrations. Ultimately, the philosophical implications of attempting to measure the unseen must be considered. Does science have the tools to fully understand consciousness, spirituality, and the nature of reality, or are there aspects of existence that lie beyond the reach of scientific inquiry? It seems that we are only scratching the surface of paranormal investigation. To summarize, measuring demonic influence is outside our current capacity as it stands now. We've explored various approaches to measuring demonic influence, but it's clear that we're still far from having any definitive scientific proof. But if there's no way to objectively verify the influence of BUER, does that mean that all claims of demonic healing are simply based on delusion or wishful thinking? Next, we'll explore the power of personal narratives and the subjective impact of demonic encounters, as well as any possible psychological healing properties. Of course, some may insist that demonic influence is self-evident, regardless of scientific proof, suggesting it is a personal truth. It is also possible that current scientific methods are simply inadequate for detecting or measuring subtle energies or spiritual forces, suggesting that science isn't there yet. Finally, the absence of evidence is not necessarily evidence of absence, meaning that something isn't proven does not mean it isn't there. Can we definitively say if it is or isn't there? Therefore, it is difficult to measure BUER or any other demonic entity. Science simply isn't able to catch up to the phenomena. The difficulty in finding evidence isn't just about science, but that BUER defies definition in this way. BUER has great power, but he also has great elusive properties. The truth of demonic influence may never be quantifiable, at least not until the proper methods are developed. How can you truly measure something if it can't be seen? Does that mean that BUER's influence isn't real? Next, we will move on to the real effects, and if these effects are just psychological. Despite the absence of concrete scientific validation for BUER's healing abilities, can we gain insight into his nature by comparing him to similar healing figures from other cultures? In this section, we'll embark on a comparative journey, examining figures like Asclepius, Hermes, Thoth, and others, to uncover shared themes, archetypes, and symbolic representations of healing. Is BUER a unique entity, or simply a regional variation of a universal archetype, reflecting humanity's perennial quest for health, well-being, and spiritual wholeness? By looking at the broader context of healing throughout history, we can perhaps find some insight into why humanity has always had such a need for such entities. Historically, the study of comparative mythology offers a lens through which we can examine the recurring themes and archetypes that shape human beliefs and behaviors across diverse cultures. Figures like Sir James Frazer, with his monumental work The Golden Bough, sought to identify universal patterns in myth and ritual. Carl Jung expanded on this, introducing the concept of archetypes: universal, inherited predispositions to experience and symbolize fundamental human experiences. Joseph Campbell further popularized these ideas, emphasizing the monomyth, or hero's journey, a recurring narrative pattern found in myths worldwide. These pioneers sought to understand the underlying structures of human storytelling and belief systems, suggesting that beneath the surface of cultural diversity lies a shared psychological landscape. We can even suggest that these stories evolved independently, thus explaining the many similarities of the stories from disparate cultures. But is this the truth? Before we continue, it's important to note the difference between syncretism and parallel evolution. Syncretism refers to the blending of different religious or cultural beliefs and practices. This often occurs when different cultures come into contact and influence each other. A prime example of syncretism is the fusion of Greek and Egyptian deities in the Hellenistic period, resulting in figures like Serapis, who combined aspects of both Zeus and Osiris. On the other hand, parallel evolution in mythology refers to the independent development of similar myths, symbols, or archetypes in different cultures, without direct contact or influence. This phenomenon suggests that certain fundamental human experiences or psychological structures give rise to similar narratives and symbols across diverse societies. An example of parallel evolution can be seen in flood myths, which appear in numerous cultures around the world, each with its own unique details, but sharing the common theme of a catastrophic deluge and the subsequent renewal of humanity. It is difficult to prove if cultures share ideas through syncretism or parallel evolution. In this context, we can define a healing archetype as a recurring pattern of symbolism and behavior associated with figures who promote physical, mental, or spiritual well-being. Common attributes include a deep knowledge of medicine, a profound connection to nature, power over disease, and the ability to restore balance. This archetype manifests differently across cultures. In ancient Greece, Asclepius was revered as a skilled surgeon and healer, while Hermes served as a messenger of healing knowledge. In ancient Egypt, Thoth was credited as a scribe of medical texts. Each of these figures embodies different facets of the healing archetype, reflecting the unique cultural values and beliefs of their respective societies. In essence, these different figures are all reflections of the same archetype shown in different ways. For example, Asclepius, the Greek god of medicine and healing, was often depicted carrying a staff entwined with a serpent, a symbol that remains associated with medicine to this day. His healing sanctuaries, known as Asclepians, were centers of medical treatment and spiritual renewal, where patients would undergo purification rituals, receive herbal remedies, and even experience dream incubation in hopes of receiving divine guidance. Hermes, the messenger of the gods, played a more indirect role in healing, associated with communication, knowledge, and travel. He was believed to transmit healing knowledge and facilitate the exchange of medical information. Thoth, the Egyptian god of wisdom, writing, and medicine, was credited with inventing many of the healing arts. Texts attribute to him the creation of medical texts, detailing remedies and surgical procedures. Another example can be found in Dian's sect, the Celtic god of healing, who was said to have the ability to heal any wound or illness, and was associated with sacred wells and springs. In China, Shennong is revered as the god of Chinese medicine, credited with discovering the medicinal properties of numerous herbs and plants. Shennong is often depicted tasting various herbs and plants, a visual representation of the trial and error process of early medicine. All of these figures were essential for the people of their time and represent a deep need within the human spirit. This begs the question, why do humans need healers so badly? Perhaps it is because humans are fragile creatures, susceptible to disease, injury, and mental distress. The need for healers stems from our vulnerability and our desire to alleviate suffering and restore well-being. But more than just physical healing, healers often provide emotional support, spiritual guidance, and a sense of hope in the face of adversity. They serve as intermediaries between the human and the divine, offering access to powers and knowledge beyond the realm of ordinary experience. But why do we need to turn to potentially dangerous forces to receive help? Summarizing the key insights gained from comparing BUER to other healing figures, we see the presence of common themes and archetypes across cultures. But does BUER's existence point to a common, underlying structure in human mythology, Or is his demon's status unique? What makes him so different from the other healing figures? Next, we'll dive into the role this archetypal tension plays in the modern psyche and the human need to invoke the forbidden to satisfy their deepest desires. However, some scholars may argue that such comparisons are misleading, highlighting the importance of understanding each mythological figure within its own cultural context. Overly broad comparisons can obscure the unique nuances and specific meanings embedded in each tradition. There is a risk of imposing Western interpretations on Eastern beliefs or vice versa, leading to misrepresentations and distortions. Also, it's important to note that some aspects of BUER's description, such as the lion's head, the 5 legs, and the association with hell, may be unique to Western demonology and not easily found in other traditions. Is it right to force such a comparison? Despite these counterarguments, such comparisons can be useful to understanding BUER. Though the other healing figures are from wildly different cultures, BUER is a way to understand a through line. All these figures represent the human desire for good health, both physically and mentally. By expanding our view, we see BUER as part of a broader phenomena, and that perhaps the demon label should not be taken at face value. We've explored BUER through history, ritual, and his relationship to other healers. Now, how does he relate to us personally? In this section, we will examine the darker aspects of human nature, exploring how embracing or integrating what is termed as the shadow self can lead to healing and wholeness. Does BUER represent the unclaimed power within our subconscious, and can working with this archetype lead to personal transformation? To understand how BUER connects to our internal world, we must first explore the concept of the shadow self. This concept, most famously articulated by Carl Jung, posits that within each of us exists a hidden realm of personality traits, emotions, and behaviors that we often repress or deny. Many cultures throughout history have different terms for this shadow self, each with its own nuances and interpretations. While the shadow is often seen as a negative thing, representing the undesirable aspects of our nature, it can also be a power source. The shadow holds immense potential for growth and understanding. By confronting and integrating these hidden aspects of ourselves, we can unlock untapped creativity, compassion, and resilience. It is easy to see this as something scary, but perhaps this is just another area of ignorance. The shadow is important to modern psychology. The shadow self, in Jungian psychology, encompasses all the qualities we disown, repress, or hide from our conscious awareness. These are the aspects of ourselves that we deem unacceptable, whether due to societal conditioning, personal trauma, or simply a desire to maintain a positive self-image. It's important to note that while the shadow often contains negative traits like jealousy, rage, and greed, it can also include positive qualities that we've been taught to suppress, such as vulnerability, sensitivity, and creative expression. Identifying shadow traits requires introspection, self-reflection, and a willingness to confront uncomfortable emotions. Practices like meditation, journaling, and even therapy can help us become more aware of these hidden aspects of ourselves. By understanding the shadow, one can be freed from it. Integrating the shadow self means acknowledging and accepting these darker aspects of our being. It doesn't mean indulging in negative behaviors, but rather understanding their origins and integrating them into our conscious awareness. So, how might someone identify these shadow traits? Consider the example of someone who constantly criticizes others for being lazy or unproductive. This might be a projection of their own repressed feelings of inadequacy or guilt about not achieving their own goals. Or someone who frequently flies into fits of rage over minor inconveniences might be repressing deeper feelings of vulnerability or fear. In his work, Jung stated, "Everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is." This highlights the importance of bringing the shadow into the light of consciousness, rather than allowing it to fester in the unconscious, influencing our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors in subtle but powerful ways. This relates directly to someone's healing process. For instance, claiming "I am not angry" when they are might only fester into something worse. Let's analyze what BUER means in relation to our shadow selves. BUER, in his demonic form, represents the traits that people often push away: the darker aspects of healing, the willingness to confront pain and suffering, and the acceptance of mortality. His demonic traits, such as his association with hell and his grotesque appearance, make it easier for people to reject these aspects of themselves. These are the precise things people do not want to think about. Working with demons, even in a symbolic sense, can be a way of confronting these shadow aspects. It can be a mirror reflecting back to us the parts of ourselves that we've disowned. In this context, BUER is not necessarily an evil entity to be feared, but rather a symbolic representation of the qualities we need to make peace with and embrace in order to achieve wholeness. Thus, BUER is a symbolic connection to traits we dislike. Now, is working with a demon the only way to do this, or are there other options? Next, we'll look at traditional techniques for doing the same thing without demons. However, not everyone is comfortable working with demonic figures, even in a symbolic sense. Some may prefer to work with more traditionally friendly figures, such as angels or deities associated with healing and compassion. Others might find the whole concept of shadow work to be too much, considering it emotionally taxing or even dangerous to delve into the darker aspects of the psyche. It's also important to acknowledge more traditional approaches to healing and personal growth. For some, praying to a higher power or seeking guidance from a spiritual advisor might be a more comfortable and effective path. Others might find solace and healing in traditional psychotherapy or other forms of mental health treatment. All of these methods can be effective. Despite these counterarguments, the shadow exists in everyone. There are options when working to uncover it, and demons are just one choice. BUER represents the duality of dark and light. Ultimately, the shadow is a key component of being human, and understanding is essential to personal growth and well-being. What other demons may relate to the shadow, and can understanding them also help with personal growth? Now that the shadow has been examined, what part do emotions play in healing and well-being? This leads us to the next layer of BUER's enigmatic nature, his potential influence on mental and emotional well-being, expanding far beyond the physical ailments typically associated with healing. The implications are intriguing, suggesting that BUER's power goes further than just diseases. He is capable of affecting the mind. But what is it about demons, figures often associated with darkness and suffering, that makes people feel better? To understand this potential influence, it's important to recognize that the understanding of the mind-body connection is not a modern revelation. Ancient Greek philosophers, such as Plato and Hippocrates, recognized the interconnectedness of mental and physical health, believing that emotions could directly impact physical well-being. Traditional Chinese medicine, with its emphasis on qi and the flow of energy through the body, also acknowledges the link between emotional states and physical health. Similarly, Ayurvedic practices in India emphasize the balance of mind, body, and spirit for optimal health. In Christianity, there have been accounts of people being healed through faith and prayer. Likewise, Buddhism encourages balance through meditation. With each, the mind plays a part. These philosophies, developed over centuries, highlight the importance of considering the whole person, not just the physical symptoms. How have these early philosophies impacted our modern understanding? The development of modern psychology, particularly the work of Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung, brought renewed attention to the impact of emotions on physical health. Freud's exploration of the unconscious mind revealed how repressed emotions could manifest as physical symptoms. As scientific method began to take hold, researchers started to explore new perspectives. As they explored, these studies provided a more scientific basis for the mind-body connection, demonstrating how stress, anxiety, and other emotions can affect the immune system cardiovascular health, and overall well-being. Even today, we can explore ways to understand our mental health and how it impacts our lives. What is it about spiritual and holistic movements that has people continuing to discuss mental well-being? With the mind-body connection established, let's see how it applies to BUER and the idea of demonic healing. Mental and emotional well-being encompasses a range of positive psychological states, including happiness, peace, confidence, and resilience. This goes further than not sad, but a positive and sustainable feeling. When these states are disrupted by negative emotions such as stress, anxiety, or grief, it can manifest physically in various ways. For example, chronic anxiety can increase heart rate, elevate blood pressure, and weaken the immune system, making individuals more susceptible to illness. Grief, on the other hand, can cause weight loss, fatigue, and a weakened immune system. This may happen from something small or be the result of trauma, but can mental well-being truly be measured? Therapeutic modalities such as emotional freedom technique, EFT, cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, mindfulness meditation, and hypnotherapy aim to address these emotional imbalances and promote healing. So how might BUER affect those imbalances? Perhaps through offering mental clarity in moments of confusion, or perhaps helping someone with finding confidence. Talk to someone suffering from grief, and they may say they feel a weight on their chest. The question is, can demonic intervention relieve these issues? There are anecdotal accounts of people who claim to have experienced emotional or mental healing through BUER, reporting a sense of relief from burdens or a newfound sense of peace. One individual, after performing a BUER-related ritual, reported feeling a burden being lifted from their shoulders, experiencing a sense of emotional lightness and freedom they hadn't felt in years. Another described feeling a sense of euphoria after working with BUER. What happened, and can it be repeated? These claims are, of course, subjective and difficult to verify, but they offer intriguing insights into the potential psychological effects of engaging with demonic entities. Within occult communities, there are a number of incantations for releasing negative emotions, meditations for gaining inner peace, or visualizations for increasing self-confidence. These are not new concepts, but the addition of a demonic entity may play a part. It is important to understand, however, that grimoires themselves do not speak about emotional healing from BUER. What could these new interpretations mean? In this context, BUER's influence on mental and emotional well-being can be interpreted as representing the ability to confront and transform negative emotions, such as fear, grief, and anxiety. He is not only a demon of medicine, but a symbol of the healing of emotional wounds. As an independent force, BUER gives power to those who feel powerless, offering a sense of control over their own mental and emotional states. This may also represent a power of healing in general. But is this truly the influence of an external force, or can his influence act as a placebo, triggering internal psychological processes that lead to healing? Some see demons as a tool to overcome trauma, and some see the demons as a representation of the trauma itself. By externalizing their trauma, can one truly be freed from it? It is important to remember that everyone processes differently, and that working with a demon isn't for everyone. BUER's abilities go further than just physical, reaching into mental and emotional realms. He is not limited to only physical healing, but to healing of the mind. But is this true healing, or just feelings? Can something so subjective be a source of truth? What is it about feelings that makes them hard to quantify? Next, we will dive into how feelings can be deceiving and why the scientific community is hesitant to embrace these claims. It is necessary to acknowledge that mental and emotional healing is difficult to measure objectively. Unlike physical ailments, which can be diagnosed through medical tests and imaging techniques, emotional states are largely based on an individual's subjective experience. This makes it challenging to determine whether someone's improved mental state is a direct result of BUER's influence or simply a consequence of other factors, such as therapy, medication, or lifestyle changes. It is important to always consult a licensed medical professional for treatment. It is also easy to be tricked by yourself, as the potential for self-deception is significant. This is why the scientific community generally rejects these claims as pseudoscience. Still, is there value in these practices? It is vital to understand that some emotional and mental benefits attributed to BUER may be attributed to placebo. When people believe in the power of a particular treatment, they are more likely to experience positive outcomes, regardless of whether the treatment has any inherent medicinal properties. This is known as the placebo effect, and it can be a powerful force in healing. Someone is more likely to feel better if they believe they will feel better, and the opposite is true as well. What is interesting is the question of demonic influence and how people throughout history saw demons in a negative light. With BUER, this image is slightly broken. Ultimately, it is fine for someone to believe in a god or to pursue a therapist for mental well-being. These choices all come down to the individual. What matters is that they get help. Despite these counterarguments, BUER remains a figure of power for many, offering hope and healing in both the physical and emotional realms. Considering all evidence, BUER is not limited to just physical, but mental and emotional too. Health is about more than just not sick. It also includes a sense of well-being, peace, and fulfillment. Perhaps there is something worth exploring about demonic healing, even if it challenges conventional medical and psychological perspectives. But is there something dangerous about seeing a demon as good? And what could that mean for our understanding of this figure? We've discussed BUER's potential effects on emotions and mental well-being, but can he affect the path forward? In this section, we'll explore the concept of BUER as a guide in the face of tough times and how to interpret the signs. Could BUER help someone interpret the signs of an oncoming illness? And what does it mean to turn to a demon for spiritual guidance? Throughout history, cultures across the globe have revered spiritual guides. From the mentors of ancient Greece to the religious leaders of organized faiths, humanity has sought wisdom and direction from those believed to possess a deeper understanding of life's mysteries. Shamans in indigenous societies act as intermediaries between the physical and spiritual realms, offering guidance and healing. Oracles like the Pythia at Delphi were consulted for prophecies and insights into the future. These figures often provide comfort and clarity during periods of uncertainty, transition, or crisis, offering advice, visions, or signs to illuminate the path forward. In Christianity, guidance is sought through prayer, and in Buddhism, it is sought through meditation. How can we compare the search for enlightenment in religion to the search of spiritual guidance through demons? But what does it truly mean to be a spiritual guide? At its core, a spiritual guide is someone who provides wisdom, support, and direction on life's journey. They offer clarity in times of confusion, insight into complex situations, and the courage to face challenges. BUER in this context could potentially serve as such a guide, offering insight and the courage to make difficult health-related decisions. However, it is crucial to remember the importance of free will and personal responsibility. BUER can only guide, but cannot make decisions. What are the ethical implications of assigning that kind of authority to a demon? BUER's possible spheres of influence as a guide could include career changes prompted by health concerns, the impact of relationships on well-being, or even navigating complex medical choices. There are accounts of BUER-related rituals designed to seek guidance on life decisions. These divination methods aim to tap into deeper levels of insight, providing clarity on challenging situations. Some have turned to BUER when contemplating a job that requires too much physical activity, hoping that they could discover a new career path that is less physically taxing. Others have said BUER led them to the right people. While concrete documented proof is difficult to come by, there are anecdotal accounts of people who believe BUER helped them make life-altering decisions. One individual reported that BUER provided the clarity needed to choose a life-saving surgery, despite the risks involved. Occult communities are filled with stories such as these, where people share their experiences and offer their interpretations. Those turning to BUER often make an offering, such as a donation to a hospital. What is it about demons and healing that makes these offerings so unique? Analyzing the symbolic meaning of BUER's guidance in navigating health and destiny, we can see a representation of tapping into inner wisdom. Rather than viewing BUER as an external force dictating choices, he can be interpreted as a catalyst for accessing one's own intuition and ability to make wise decisions. By facing our fears, BUER empowers people to take control of their lives and health, fostering a sense of agency in the face of uncertainty. How can we reconcile the empowering aspect of demonic guidance with the traditional view of demons as malevolent entities? This can apply to real life by using that inner wisdom to make informed decisions, take proactive steps to improve well-being, and cultivate a sense of self-reliance. BUER presents himself as a figure offering guidance, provided that one remains responsible. But are his intentions clear? Is BUER always acting as a guide, or could he be leading people down dangerous paths? Next, we'll examine deceptive practices. However, not everyone will agree with seeking spiritual guidance. Some may prefer to rely solely on logic, reason, and scientific evidence when making important life decisions. Highlighting different ways of reasoning, it is important to acknowledge the value of critical thinking and evidence-based decision-making. Self-deception is a real danger, and it's easy to trick oneself into believing something that is not true. The potential for misinterpreting guidance is also significant, leading individuals to believe one thing when the reality is quite different. It is also crucial to acknowledge that there are many other paths to guidance, including friends, therapists, family, and mentors. Each offers unique perspectives and support. What are the advantages and disadvantages of choosing one path over another? Despite these counterarguments, BUER's potential as a spiritual guide remains a compelling concept for many, especially for those seeking alternative approaches to healing and well-being. However, it is important to reiterate that all decisions ultimately remain in the hands of the individual. BUER, in this context, is someone who can potentially help individuals make those choices, highlighting the inherent duality of choice between good and bad, health and sickness, life and death. But can we even trust him? What is the next step in understanding his nature? We've explored BUER as a guide, but can guidance always be trusted? What if the benevolent guide has a deceptive side, subtly leading you astray while promising healing and wisdom? In this section, we will explore the deceitful side of demons, questioning if BUER himself is as benevolent as he seems, and exploring the masks they wear to conceal their true intentions. If BUER can be deceptive, what are the telltale signs, and what devastating consequences might await those who trust him blindly? Throughout history, the realm of demons has been closely intertwined with the concept of deception. Across various cultures and mythologies, demons are rarely portrayed as forthright beings. Instead, they are often depicted as masters of trickery, illusion, and manipulation. Consider Loki from Norse mythology, a trickster god known for his cunning schemes and ability to shapeshift. Similarly, Satan in Abrahamic religions is often portrayed as the ultimate deceiver, tempting humans with false promises and leading them away from divine truth. Even demons like Pazuzu, while sometimes invoked for protection, are also associated with chaos and unpredictable behavior, hinting at a potential for trickery. This inherent association of trickery with the demonic realm suggests that deception is not merely an occasional tactic, but a fundamental aspect of their nature. Is this deception always malicious, or can it serve a more complex purpose? But what exactly is demonic trickery, and why might demons engage in it? At its core, demonic trickery involves the use of lies, manipulation, and deceit to mislead humans, often for the demon's own benefit. The motivations behind this trickery can vary widely, ranging from a simple desire to sow chaos and discord to more complex goals, such as gaining power, testing faith, or corrupting souls. Demons might employ various forms of deception, including making false promises of wealth or power, creating illusions to deceive the senses, disguising their true identities to gain trust, or engaging in subtle manipulations to influence thoughts and behaviors. The consequences of falling victim to demonic trickery can be devastating, leading to a loss of faith, psychological damage, spiritual corruption, or even eternal damnation. What are the limits of this deception? There are countless examples of demons who are specifically known for their deceptive nature. Azazel, for instance, is often associated with leading men astray, tempting them with forbidden knowledge and corrupting their morals. In the Testament of Solomon, demons boast of their ability to deceive and manipulate humans, highlighting the importance of caution when dealing with such entities. Historical accounts abound with stories of individuals who believed they were tricked by demons, from pacts that went horribly wrong to promises that were broken and illusions that led to ruin. Grimoires such as the Lesser Key of Solomon frequently warn against the dangers of demonic trickery, advising practitioners to test spirits and be wary of their words, as demons are known to lie and deceive to achieve their aims. Even BUER, with his reputation as a healer and teacher, could potentially show up in disguise, offering seemingly benevolent advice that ultimately leads to harm. What could be the disguise of a healing demon? Analyzing the motivations behind demonic deception, we can see a complex interplay of factors at play. Is it purely malicious, driven by a desire to cause suffering and destruction, or does it serve a larger, more cosmic purpose? Some believe that demonic trickery represents the challenges of discerning truth from falsehood, forcing individuals to confront their own weaknesses and vulnerabilities. The psychological impact of being deceived by a demon can be profound, leading to trauma, disillusionment, and a loss of trust, not only in the spiritual realm, but also in oneself. Why might someone fall for a demon's lies? Perhaps it is a reflection of their own desires and fears, their willingness to believe in something that seems too good to be true, or their lack of discernment in spiritual matters. Are these demons exploiting vulnerabilities? Given the potential for demonic trickery and deception, it is crucial to approach any interaction with the demonic realm with caution and discernment. But is BUER capable of such trickery, or is he truly benevolent, an exception to the rule? Next, we'll delve into the subtle ways BUER might lead someone astray, even with the best intentions, and how to recognize the warning signs before it's too late. What could those warning signs be? However, it is important to acknowledge that some people may view BUER as a purely benevolent entity, incapable of deception or malicious intent. Some may argue that BUER is an exception to the general rule of demonic trickery, possessing a higher moral compass or a greater understanding of human needs. Others may contend that any negative outcomes associated with BUER are the result of the individual's own choices or misinterpretations, rather than any deliberate attempt to deceive. Ultimately, it is up to each individual to determine their own level of trust and skepticism when working with BUER or any other demonic entity. But what is at stake? Despite these counterarguments, the potential for demonic trickery remains a significant concern, particularly when dealing with entities like BUER who present themselves as benevolent guides. While BUER may possess great abilities and offer valuable assistance, that does not necessarily mean he is incapable of deception or manipulation. The demonic realm is a complex and unpredictable place, and it is always wise to approach it with caution and a healthy dose of skepticism. BUER, like other demons, may have a dark side, a hidden agenda, or a limited perspective that could lead individuals down dangerous paths. So how do you know if you can truly trust BUER, and what safeguards can you put in place to protect yourself from his potential deceptions? Having explored the potential for BUER to be deceptive, let's consider this. Can deception be a good thing? Is it possible for a healing lie to be part of the path to wellness? In this section, we will explore situations where deception may lead to a greater good, or at least a perceived one. Is lying ever justifiable, especially when it comes to something as sacred as health, and what makes a deception acceptable in the realm of healing. Throughout history, deception has been employed for perceived good purposes, often in times of crisis or when the truth was deemed too dangerous to bear. Consider wartime misinformation campaigns designed to mislead the enemy and protect one's own forces. These campaigns, while undeniably deceptive, were often seen as necessary evils, justified by the greater good of winning the war. Similarly, some cultures place a high value on white lies, small deceptions intended to protect feelings, maintain social harmony, or avoid causing unnecessary distress. In many Eastern cultures, for example, the concept of saving face is paramount, and individuals may engage in deception to avoid embarrassing themselves or others, even if it means bending the truth. Is this not a form of benevolent deception? But perhaps the most compelling example of deception's potential role in healing lies in the placebo effect. This phenomenon, well documented in medical research, demonstrates that a patient's belief in a treatment, even if that treatment is entirely inert, can trigger a genuine physiological response, leading to improved health outcomes. The placebo effect relies on a form of deception, albeit one that is often unintentional. The patient is, in essence, tricked into believing that they are receiving a real treatment, and this belief enhances their body's natural healing abilities. From ancient shamans using elaborate rituals to convince patients of their healing powers to modern doctors prescribing sugar pills, deception, whether conscious or unconscious, has long been intertwined with the healing process. Does this suggest a fundamental connection between belief, deception, and well-being? So what exactly constitutes a healing lie or benevolent deception, and how does it differ from more malicious forms of deceit? At its core, a healing lie is a deception intended to reduce harm, protect feelings, or promote well-being. It's not always negative, and in some cases, it may even be seen as a compassionate act. The crucial element is intent. What is the purpose of the lie? Is it designed to manipulate or exploit, or is it genuinely aimed at benefiting the recipient? Even with the best of intentions, the ethical considerations and potential consequences of such deception must be carefully considered. Could a lie, even a well-intentioned one, ultimately undermine trust, erode autonomy, or lead to unintended harm? Let us now consider how BUER's actions might be interpreted as deceptive, even if his intentions are genuinely benevolent. Imagine a scenario where BUER leads a patient to believe in the efficacy of an unproven remedy, knowing that the patient's belief will enhance the treatment's placebo effect. Or perhaps BUER withholds a grim prognosis, believing that the knowledge would only induce panic and despair, further hindering the patient's recovery. Within occult communities, similar experiences with spirit guides are often discussed. Do those who follow these guides believe that they have their best interests at heart, even when the truth is obscured? Some practitioners have described rituals where spirits provide misleading information to test the practitioner's discernment, suggesting that even benevolent entities may engage in deception for a greater purpose. How can one discern truth from falsehood in such a context? Analyzing the potential motivations behind BUER's deceptive practices, a complex picture emerges. Is he prioritizing short-term comfort over long-term honesty, believing that a little deception now will ultimately lead to a better outcome? Is he acting as a paternalistic figure, deciding what is best for the patient, even if it means withholding information? What might the symbolism of deception in relation to the healing process mean? Are people not capable of handling the full truth about their conditions, or does BUER believe that hope, even if based on a lie, is a more potent medicine than despair? Furthermore, we must explore the psychological impact of discovering that one has been deceived, even with good intentions. Has the trust between the healer and the patient been irrevocably broken, or can it be repaired through understanding and forgiveness? Can the ends ever justify the means, even when it comes to healing? In essence, there are arguments on both sides of this ethical dilemma. BUER's potential for deception raises profound questions about the nature of healing, the role of truth, and the limits of benevolence. But ultimately, the responsibility for navigating these complex issues lies with the individual. The demon may be offering the deception, but what is your part in accepting it? By choosing to believe the healing lie, what does that say about your own willingness to embrace hope, even in the face of uncertainty? In the next section, we will explore how to embrace responsibility and harness the power of belief to take control of your own healing journey, with or without the aid of a demonic entity. However, it is important to acknowledge that some may view any form of deception as inherently wrong, regardless of the intent. Some may argue that honesty is always the best policy, even when it comes to delivering difficult or painful news. From this perspective, benevolent deception is not only unethical, but also potentially harmful, as it undermines trust, erodes autonomy, and prevents individuals from making informed decisions about their own health. It's also possible that such deception could be seen as manipulative or paternalistic, as it assumes that the healer knows what is best for the patient, even without their explicit consent. Furthermore, some cultures may encourage directness and transparency, viewing deception, even with good intentions, as a sign of disrespect or distrust. Where do you draw the line? Despite these counterarguments, the possibility remains that BUER is deceptive for potentially positive reasons. After all, we have seen BUER as a complex demon with the potential for good and evil. By choosing to follow that lie, what does that say about your personal healing journey? By admitting that this power exists, that it is truly, madly, deeply within you, the healing can begin. With that, what does the truth truly mean to you? Now that we have explored whether healing lies might have a place, even a positive one, in the pursuit of wellness, the critical question becomes, how do we, as individuals, take charge of our own healing journeys? This section shifts the focus from external forces, like BUER or medical professionals, to the power within you. It's about personal accountability, self-efficacy, and the potential for BUER, or any healing modality, to act as a catalyst for self-empowerment. But is BUER merely a placebo with a 5-pointed star, or something more profound? To understand the empowered patient, we must first consider the evolution of the patient-physician relationship. Historically, this relationship was often paternalistic, with doctors holding absolute authority and patients expected to passively accept their advice. In ancient times, physicians were often seen as possessing mystical or divine powers, their knowledge shrouded in secrecy and ritual. Patients were largely dependent on the physician's expertise, with little access to medical information or the ability to challenge their diagnoses or treatment plans. This model persisted for centuries, reinforced by social hierarchies and limited access to education and resources. But how did we shift from unquestioning obedience to active participation in our own healthcare? The transformation towards empowered patients began with increased access to information and the rise of patient advocacy. With the advent of the internet and readily available medical information, patients are no longer solely reliant on their doctors for knowledge about their conditions and treatment options. They can research their symptoms, compare different therapies, and seek second opinions, becoming more informed and active participants in their care. Furthermore, patient advocacy groups have emerged to champion patient rights, promote informed consent, and ensure that patients have a voice in healthcare policy. These groups have played a crucial role in shifting the power dynamic, advocating for greater transparency, accountability, and patient-centered care. What rights, then, do patients truly possess? An empowered patient is one who takes an active and informed role in their own healthcare. This involves seeking knowledge about their conditions, asking questions, making informed decisions, adhering to treatment plans, and adopting healthy lifestyle habits. Empowered patients are not passive recipients of care. They are active collaborators with their healthcare providers, working together to achieve the best possible outcomes. Key characteristics include self-awareness, critical thinking, and effective communication skills. But what are the tangible benefits of embracing this empowered role? The benefits of patient empowerment are manifold, extending beyond improved health outcomes to encompass greater satisfaction, increased self-esteem, and a stronger sense of control over one's life. Studies have shown that empowered patients are more likely to adhere to treatment plans, manage chronic conditions effectively, and experience a higher quality of life. By actively participating in their care, patients gain a deeper understanding of their health, allowing them to make informed decisions that align with their values and preferences. This sense of control can also reduce anxiety, boost self-confidence, and foster a more positive outlook, further enhancing the healing process. However, is there a limit to this empowerment? It is crucial to recognize that even the most empowered patient is not a substitute for a qualified medical professional. Doctors and other healthcare providers possess specialized knowledge and expertise that patients cannot acquire on their own. While empowered patients can and should actively participate in their care, they must also respect the expertise of their healthcare providers and trust their professional judgment. The ideal patient-physician relationship is one of shared decision-making, where both parties contribute their unique knowledge and perspectives to develop a treatment plan that is both effective and aligned with the patient's values. How can we find the balance between self-advocacy and respecting professional expertise? Individuals can take concrete steps to take responsibility for their healing journey. This includes researching medical conditions and treatments from reputable sources, seeking second opinions from other healthcare professionals, adhering to prescribed treatment plans and lifestyle recommendations, and practicing self-care techniques such as meditation, exercise, and healthy eating. In fact, many find success in creating small habits that lead to a large outcome. Many have found the use of meditation has helped with stress, which allowed their body to rest and heal. What other steps can one take to become more involved? There are countless stories of individuals who have successfully managed chronic conditions or overcome serious illnesses through proactive self-care. One such story involves a woman named Sarah, who was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis in her early 30s. Initially, Sarah felt overwhelmed and helpless, relying solely on medication to manage her symptoms. However, after attending a patient empowerment workshop, Sarah began to take a more active role in her care. She researched her condition, learned about the benefits of exercise and healthy eating, and started practicing yoga and meditation. Over time, Sarah was able to reduce her reliance on medication and experience a significant improvement in her quality of life. She reported feeling better due to active involvement. Have there been historical instances of this kind of self-determination? In ancient Greece, the Asclepians, or healing temples, emphasized the importance of patient involvement in the healing process. Patients were encouraged to purify themselves through fasting, prayer, and dream incubation, actively participating in their own recovery. These temples were not merely places of medical treatment. They were centers of holistic healing, where the mind, body, and spirit were integrated into the therapeutic process. This illustrates that, across time and cultures, there is recognition of the power of self-determination. What is it about taking control that seems to foster healing? Taking responsibility for healing in the context of demonolatry can be interpreted as an assertion of personal power and autonomy. By actively participating in their care, individuals demonstrate that they are not helpless victims of disease or circumstance. They are empowered agents capable of influencing their own health outcomes. In this framework, BUER's role may be seen as a facilitator, a catalyst for self-empowerment, rather than a sole source of healing. He may provide guidance, support, and access to knowledge, but ultimately, the responsibility for taking action lies with the individual. Does BUER want the user to take responsibility? The psychological benefits of taking control of one's healing journey are significant. By actively participating in their care, individuals experience a reduced sense of anxiety, an increased sense of self-efficacy, and a greater sense of hope. This empowerment can also extend beyond the realm of health, influencing other areas of their lives. However, what are the potential pitfalls? It is possible to fall into the trap of believing that any issue can be overcome without external help. Some might believe that if they simply have enough willpower, any amount of disease can be overcome. This could lead to individuals not seeking professional help when they need it, believing they can handle anything on their own. Could this lead to more harm than good? Empowering the user is more important than relying solely on BUER for healing. BUER may provide guidance and support, but ultimately, the ability to heal lies within the individual. By actively participating in their care, individuals can unlock their inner potential and experience transformative healing on multiple levels. But are there other entities or sources that can provide this empowering influence? However, it's important to acknowledge that not everyone is equipped or able to take on the full responsibility for their healthcare. Some individuals may feel overwhelmed by the complexity of medical information or lack the resources and support necessary to make informed decisions. Furthermore, some individuals may simply prefer to defer to the expertise of their healthcare providers, trusting them to make the best decisions on their behalf. What factors might limit one's ability to become an empowered patient? Some may just like to believe the results are due to BUER, and that the results had nothing to do with their active involvement. It may give them a sense of comfort and control, even if it is a self-deception. Could this belief in demonic intervention, even if not objectively true, still hold some therapeutic value? Ultimately, the most important ingredient in the healing process is the self. BUER can play a role, offering guidance and support, but the individual must take responsibility for their own health. This involves seeking knowledge, making informed decisions, adhering to treatment plans, and practicing self-care. By embracing this empowered role, individuals can unlock their inner potential and experience transformative healing. Taking responsibility gives one power, whether it's the power to get better or the power to change one's life. So we ask you, what is your power? Now that we know that empowering the self is of the utmost importance, we have to consider other sources in demonology. While BUER has a focus on healing, are there other demons who can provide assistance in other ways? In the next section, we will learn about those. Having emphasized the patient's role in their own healing journey, let's now turn to other entities beyond BUER. What other sources of healing exist, and what can we learn from them? In this section, we will broaden our view, examining deities, spirits, and archetypes from various cultures who offer healing and guidance. Is there an aspect to these beings that is simply cultural, or is there something deeper, something universal, that resonates across different belief systems? Historically, healing deities and spirits have been prevalent in ancient cultures. The role of Asclepius, the Greek god of medicine, exemplifies this. Temples dedicated to him served as both medical centers and places of worship, where supplicants sought divine intervention for their ailments. Most ancient societies had some way of invoking healing from otherworldly entities. Some cultures had physical healers, like shamans or priest-physicians, who asked for help from above, acting as intermediaries between the human and divine realms. This evolved over time, with different societies emphasizing different approaches, from direct prayer to deities to more complex rituals involving spirit communication and energy manipulation. People have always sought out otherworldly entities for help, but where did these beliefs originate, and why are they so persistent across cultures? What exactly constitutes a healing entity? Generally, it is defined as a divine, spiritual, or mythical being specifically associated with healing, health, and well-being. Across cultures, these entities often share common attributes. They often have a strong connection to nature, a deep knowledge of herbs and medicinal plants, and the ability to cure diseases or alleviate suffering. These entities are invoked or honored in various ways, including prayer, offerings, rituals, and pilgrimages to sacred sites. There are many possible reasons for their association with healing. Some believe that these entities possess inherent healing powers derived from their connection to life forces, while others see them as conduits for divine energy or intermediaries between the human and spiritual realms. What underlying forces do they represent? Consider Asclepius, the Greek god of medicine. Temples devoted to Asclepius, known as Asclepians, were established throughout the Greek world, serving as both medical centers and sacred spaces. Stories of miraculous cures attributed to Asclepius's healing touch abound, with patients reporting vivid dreams and visions during their stay at the temples. The Homeric hymns describe Asclepius's divine skills, stating that he was taught the art of healing by the wise centaur Chiron, and that he possessed the ability to even raise the dead. Associated rituals included purification rites, sacrifices, and incubation, where patients would sleep in the temple in hopes of receiving a divine visitation or cure. What is it about the mind and body that make belief such a powerful healing component? Now consider Brigid, the Celtic goddess of healing, poetry, and fertility. She was revered as a source of life, abundance, and well-being. Her sacred wells and springs were believed to possess healing properties, attracting pilgrims seeking cures for various ailments. White Buffalo Woman, a Lakota spirit of healing and abundance, is another example. According to Lakota tradition, she appeared to the Lakota people during a time of famine, bringing them the sacred white buffalo calf pipe and teaching them the importance of prayer, respect for nature, and living in harmony with the earth. These gifts were meant to heal the people. What do these examples tell us? Analyzing these examples, we can see common themes emerge. Benevolence is a recurring characteristic, with most healing entities portrayed as compassionate and caring beings dedicated to alleviating suffering and promoting well-being. Each culture viewed healing through its own unique lens. The Greeks saw healing as a gift from the gods, requiring reverence and supplication, so one should revere them. The Celts viewed healing as an inherent part of nature, accessible through sacred sites and practices. The Lakota saw healing as a holistic process involving spiritual connection, respect for the earth, and harmonious living. People invoked these entities for various reasons. They represent power, and healing is power. They also represent hope, comfort, and a sense of connection to something greater than themselves. Asclepius is very different in tone and theme from BUER, but all may serve an important purpose in guiding individuals towards healing and wholeness. But are their powers benevolent? There are commonalities across the pantheon of healers. We see their powers, but what about their intent? Is their intention to heal everyone, or are there limits to their benevolence? Next, we will explore entities who might be called to harm, as well as heal, beings whose intentions are far more ambiguous than those of Asclepius or Brigid. Some want nothing to do with demons and would prefer to work solely with entities like Asclepius, viewing them as safe and benevolent. However, it's crucial to be mindful when calling upon entities from different cultures and what they may represent, and to be aware of the potential for cultural appropriation. Some might even say that the very concept of alternative healing entities is silly. But what is the harm in looking? Despite these counterarguments, it's clear that all healing entities, regardless of their origin or perceived nature, represent a fundamental human desire for wellness, wholeness, and connection to something greater than ourselves. The entity is merely an instrument, a tool that can be used for good or ill. All entities represent some goal, some desired outcome. The power of choice lies with you. It is not whether BUER, Brigid, or Asclepius are real, but what you choose to believe and how you choose to act. Ultimately, what do these entities represent to you, and how can they serve as a catalyst for your own healing and self-discovery? What would happen if you sought aid from those who are not so benevolent? We've examined entities that offer healing, but what happens when these entities offer harm? In this section, we will explore entities who are known for both healing and malevolence, and are they truly worth the risk? What must they do in exchange? The answer may be more complex than you think, for healing and harm are more intertwined than you might suspect. To understand why, let's consider the concept of apotropaic magic. This is where the entity that causes the disease is also the one who cures it, a reflection of the idea that power resides in the source of the affliction itself. Then there is the idea of sympathetic magic, where something similar can influence something else, and sometimes that influence can bring negative consequences. We even see this reflected in the use of harmful substances as medicine, such as poisons used in small doses. Healing and harm can be closely linked in tradition, but why? What exactly is a malevolent healing entity? It is, essentially, an entity that can provide healing, but possesses malevolent properties or intentions. Why would such a being exist? One possible motivation is to test the supplicant, pushing them to their limits before granting them aid. Another could be simply to cause chaos, disrupting the natural order and reveling in the ensuing turmoil. This brings us to the concept of broken cures, something that appears good on the surface but carries terrible drawbacks or consequences. Perhaps the healing comes at the cost of one's sanity, or perhaps it invites an even greater evil. Might this be the reason BUER is considered a demon? Consider Sekhmet, the Egyptian goddess of healing and destruction. Known for her fierce, lion-headed appearance and bloodthirsty nature, she could unleash plagues upon humanity, but she also possessed the power to cure diseases and protect against harm. What drove her dual nature? Then there is Ereshkigal, the Mesopotamian goddess of the underworld, associated with death and decay, but also with the renewal of life and the secrets of healing. Are we to assume that life and death are simply two sides of the same coin? We also have historical accounts of curses or hexes disguised as healing rituals. Imagine a story where a healer uses magic not to cure, but to get revenge, twisting the art of healing into a tool of malice. What horrors might they inflict? Grimoires, too, often describe rituals involving both healing and harm. Think of rituals that involve the invocation of spirits for healing purposes, but that also require a sacrifice or offering that brings pain and suffering to another being. Does this suggest the ends justify the means? Consider a specific example, a ritual to cure a debilitating disease that requires the practitioner to inflict the same disease upon an animal, transferring the suffering from the human to the animal. What are the ethical implications of such a ritual? Why would some cultures believe a single entity can cause both good and harm? Perhaps it speaks to a belief in balance, the idea that every force has an equal and opposite reaction. If the cure is the problem, is that showing how people can self-sabotage, seeking quick fixes without considering the long-term consequences? How does this shift the dynamic between the healer and the supplicant? In real life, this can manifest as a reliance on harmful coping mechanisms, such as addiction, to alleviate emotional pain. Evil entities exist, or at least, the idea of them exists. But do these entities have to be evil, or is there some other way they can be a problem? Next, we will explore unintentional harm from entities, unintended consequences, and the subtle ways in which even seemingly benevolent beings can lead us astray. However, it's important to acknowledge the argument that all deities are benevolent, that some religions might suggest that deities can only be good, and that any perceived harm is merely a test or a misunderstanding of divine will. But is that truly the case? Furthermore, it's important to consider the role of human interpretation, how our own actions and intentions can shift the balance, turning a potentially positive force into a negative one. There is always potential for bias, for projecting our own fears and desires onto these entities. Despite these counterarguments, the potential danger remains. The entity possesses great power, but that power may not always be used for good. Some of the harm is within, born from our own flawed desires and motivations, and some is without, stemming from the unpredictable nature of these powerful forces. Duality, the existence of both good and evil, is a main theme in this exploration. So, does good always need to be balanced by evil? Or is the idea of a malevolent force simply a projection of our own fears? We've explored the realm of entities that offer healing but deliver harm, whether intentionally or as a consequence of flawed desires. Now, what about the unintentional harm, those results that are simply an accident, a cosmic miscalculation. In this section, we will discuss examples of this and determine if good intentions are truly enough. What are you to do if the demon just oopsed? And what does this say about BUER, this supposed benevolent healer? To understand the potential for unintended consequences, let's consider the butterfly effect, a concept born from chaos theory. In the 1960s, mathematician and meteorologist Edward Lorenz was working on weather prediction models when he discovered that tiny changes in initial conditions could lead to drastically different outcomes. A butterfly flapping its wings in Brazil could, theoretically, set off a tornado in Texas. This concept highlights the extreme sensitivity of complex systems to even the smallest variations. Then there is iatrogenic harm in medicine, harm caused by a treatment. This can be as simple as a mistake in surgery to as complex as a medication causing kidney failure. How does this relate to BUER? Unintended consequences have shaped the course of history, often in unforeseen and devastating ways. Consider the story of the Great Wall of China. Built over centuries to protect the Chinese Empire from invaders, the wall was ultimately breached not by force, but by corruption. A gatekeeper, bribed by the invading Manchus, simply opened the gates, rendering the massive structure useless. What does this tell us about well-intentioned plans, but what are unintended consequences in the context of demonic influence? Even if BUER is trying to help, is it possible for his actions to trigger unforeseen negative events? The challenge lies in the nature of the universe itself, a vast web of interconnected events where every action, no matter how small, can have far-reaching effects. Furthermore, we have to consider how these entities function. Do they have complete knowledge of all the possible outcomes of their actions, or are they limited by their own perspectives and understanding? If the intention was good, is the user still to blame for the bad? What does accountability even look like when dealing with forces beyond human comprehension? Is ignorance a valid defense? Let's explore some hypothetical scenarios. Imagine that BUER recommends an herbal remedy to alleviate a patient's chronic pain. The remedy, on its own, is safe and effective. However, unbeknownst to both BUER and the patient, the remedy interacts negatively with another medication the patient is taking, leading to severe kidney failure. Who is responsible? Or consider a different case. Someone changes their career for health, but it is not a good fit, and the person falls into financial ruin. Perhaps the healing results in the death of someone else, maybe as karmic balance. Such cases can cause long-term anxiety. In occult communities, discussions about such experiences are not uncommon. On certain occult forums, one can find anecdotes of rituals gone awry, where the desired outcome was achieved, but at a terrible cost. But of course, none of this can be proven. What does this tell us? Specific grimoires have entire sections dedicated to demons who trick users in just this manner. So, what does it mean to be responsible for things beyond one's control? Perhaps it means recognizing that while it may not be your fault, it is your responsibility to deal with the consequences of your actions, even if those actions were well-intentioned. The symbolism of the butterfly effect suggests that there may be a limit to how far demons can see, or perhaps a limit to their understanding of the intricate web of causality that governs the universe. But what does it mean to deal with the consequences if they arise? Demonic healing, while often helpful, can have unforeseen consequences. But if one cannot know, is there a point in worrying? We have discussed a lot about harm, so is there a way to mitigate that? Next, we will explore risk mitigation strategies, the steps one can take to minimize the potential for unintended consequences when working with BUER or any other entity. Now, some might find this discussion far-fetched. After all, there's no way to definitively know whether BUER or any other entity is truly responsible for these unintended consequences. Is there even a reason to worry? What can anyone know about anything? It's important to note that this problem is not unique to demonolatry. Any action can cause harm. Despite these concerns, the potential for unintended consequences remains a serious consideration. Even well-intentioned actions can lead to unforeseen and undesirable outcomes. Actions can have long ripple effects. BUER, the demon healer, embodies this duality. BUER, if nothing else, is a call to recognize the power and responsibility inherent in one's actions and to consider the potential consequences, both intended and unintended, of those actions. Now that we've seen the risks, whether intentional or accidental, that can be present when working with BUER, the supposed benevolent healer, how can one prepare for and deal with any fallout? This is the challenge of engaging with powerful forces, and in this section, we will explore a variety of precautions, from establishing clear intentions to creating safeguards in order to practice safe demonolatry. Demons may or may not be looking out for the user, but it is ultimately up to them to take care of themselves. Therefore, we must ask, how can one be their own guard? To understand these modern practices, we must delve into the ancient world, where the use of wards and protections in magic was commonplace. Amulets, talismans, sigils, and protective circles were integral components of ritual practice. These items and spaces served as barriers, deflecting negative energies and unwanted influences. Ancient Egyptians used amulets shaped like the Eye of Horus for protection, while the Greeks often carried talismans engraved with symbols of their patron deities. These practices reflect a deep-seated human desire to control and safeguard against the unseen forces that were believed to permeate the world. What did these protections mean to these people? Different cultures had different ideas about what protections were needed and how to attain them. Some required ritual purity, demanding practitioners to cleanse themselves physically and spiritually before engaging in magical acts. This might involve fasting, abstinence, or elaborate purification ceremonies. Other cultures required sacrifice, offering gifts to appease potentially malevolent entities or to strengthen the protective barriers. Still, this raises an important question. Is it ethically sound to block out a power you seek to wield? After all, if one is engaging with a demon, is it right to defend against them? These ancient practices share a common thread: the recognition that invoking supernatural forces carries inherent risks. For as long as humans have invoked, they have sought protections. But how do these ancient protections translate to our modern understanding of demonolatry, and how can we apply them when working with entities like BUER? Modern risk mitigation strategies encompass several key components: due diligence, intent, research, and protections. Due diligence involves thoroughly investigating the entity you plan to work with, understanding its history, attributes, and potential dangers. Intent refers to the clarity and focus of your desires. Research involves studying the relevant texts, grimoires, and traditions to gain a comprehensive understanding of the practice. Protections include both physical and metaphysical safeguards, such as sigils, wards, and protective circles. All this information can be overwhelming, so how is it used? These principles can be directly applied in demonolatry. Studying BUER's history, as we have done, allows practitioners to understand his motivations and potential limitations. Establishing clear boundaries ensures that the interaction remains focused and respectful. Creating sigils, inscribing wards, or visualizing protective barriers can provide an added layer of security, or at least the feeling of it. This leads us to the importance of mental preparedness. This is more than hoping and wishing, so how can it be achieved? Mental preparedness is also crucial. Before engaging with any entity, it is essential to have an exit plan, a strategy for ending the interaction if things go awry. This might involve reciting a banishing ritual, invoking a protective deity, or simply severing the connection through focused intention. Ultimately, one must deliberate on what honor means in this space. What does it mean to be respectful of the demon? How does one balance respect with protecting oneself? For example, one ritual used for protection involves drawing a protective circle with salt, a substance historically associated with purification and warding off evil. The practitioner carefully draws a circle around themselves, visualizing a barrier of pure energy that prevents any unwanted entities from entering. Another practice involves burning incense, such as frankincense or myrrh, which are believed to have cleansing and protective properties. These actions can be supplemented with personal anecdotes. One occultist shared on a popular forum that, "When I started, I felt so safe in my circle that I accidentally summoned too much. I banished, and now I prepare more." How can the preparations keep someone safe? Specific grimoires, such as the Gosha, provide detailed instructions on creating protective circles and invoking divine names to safeguard against malevolent forces. These texts often emphasize the importance of precision and focus, warning that even the slightest mistake can have dire consequences. These are texts that should be studied with great caution, but ultimately this raises the question, does any of it work? But let us analyze why some are more vulnerable than others. Those with poor mental health, pre-existing psychological conditions, or a history of trauma may be more susceptible to negative influences. These existing vulnerabilities can be exploited by entities seeking to manipulate or control. In contrast, those with strong mental fortitude, a clear sense of self, and a healthy support system are better equipped to withstand such influences. This raises the question, what do these protections represent? Are they just magic or something more? These protections represent self-respect and a recognition of one's own inherent worth. By taking steps to safeguard themselves, practitioners affirm their right to a safe and respectful interaction with the supernatural. The psychological impact of feeling safe can empower the user. This sense of security can enhance their focus, confidence, and ability to effectively communicate with the entity. With the protections in place, how can people use this in their lives? There are a lot of steps one can take to protect themselves when engaging in demonolatry. With the right steps, a practitioner can feel safe and secure. But we have discussed BUER and the steps one can take to have a beneficial relationship. But who is to say these steps are necessary? Is any of this real? Next, we will explore whether any of this is true or just superstition. It must be acknowledged that some entities cannot be controlled, some that are always chaotic. Some may argue that engaging in risk mitigation is superstitious and silly. There will always be skeptics. This is not for everyone, but if one believes, there is a chance that it is worth it. Even if there is a small chance, taking these steps is wise. The steps can be more than just protection. They are a recognition that the user has agency and that regardless of what happens, they are in control. Whether BUER is real or not is beside the point. So with all of these things known, how will you wield this power? As we conclude this exploration of BUER, the demon healer, we find ourselves at a crossroads of ancient lore, medical mystery, and ethical considerations. What began as a seemingly paradoxical concept, a demon associated with healing, has led us through a labyrinth of historical texts, occult symbolism, and contemporary practices. BUER, with his unique 5-pointed star and supposed ability to cure all ailments, embodies a complex tapestry of light and shadow. But what does it mean to approach the end of this quest? In summary, we began by questioning how a demonic entity could be linked to healing, a concept typically associated with benevolence and purity. Our journey took us through the dusty pages of grimoires, where BUER's descriptions painted a picture of an ambiguous figure, skilled in herbal remedies and philosophical wisdom, challenging the oversimplified dualities of good and evil. We examined the symbolism of the 5-pointed star, a potent emblem resonating with healing traditions across cultures, yet also associated with darker practices. We considered the ethical implications of seeking aid from such a source, weighing the potential benefits against the inherent risks of engaging with entities beyond our understanding. Ultimately, BUER is a symbol for challenging assumptions. Can we really know what is good or bad? This leads us to broader implications about humanity's relationship with the unknown. BUER's story invites us to question our boundaries and venture into uncharted territories, seeking knowledge and power wherever it may lie. Is BUER merely a demon, or does he represent humanity's relentless curiosity, the unwavering desire to push beyond the limits of conventional wisdom? What are the benefits to be found in the dark spaces, and can they ever outweigh the risks? The story of BUER challenges our preconceived notions of healing and asks us to consider its nature. Is healing purely a physical process, or does it involve psychological, spiritual, and even transgressive elements? Does the intent behind the healing matter more than the source? By daring to explore the darker corners of the occult, might we stumble upon hidden truths that can expand our understanding of health, well-being, and the very nature of existence. If BUER can be a healer, maybe the powers we give the most credit to are not the only ones. As we consider the case of the demon healer BUER, we must acknowledge the potential for both benefit and harm. While there may be knowledge and abilities to be gained, the path is fraught with peril, including the risk of psychological manipulation and self-deception. The allure of forbidden knowledge is a powerful siren song, and it is essential to tread carefully with respect, discernment, and a clear understanding of the potential consequences. So, as we consider the mysteries of BUER and his five-pointed star, let us also remember the words of caution, for true wisdom lies not only in what we seek, but in how we choose to wield that which we find. Ultimately, the scariest thing we can engage with is our own self. If you found this exploration of BUER and his medical dark arts intriguing, please share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. We are eager to hear your perspectives on unconventional healing methods and the ethical dilemmas they present. If you're ready to explore more stories of hidden knowledge and challenge conventional understanding, don't forget to subscribe and join our growing community of seekers. We have several dark and mysterious topics on the horizon. We hope to see you there. May your choices be wise and your intentions be true.